Okay. Good evening, everyone. My name is Cheryl Meck. I'm Director of the Civil Rights Division at the Pennsylvania Human Relations Commission. I want to start off tonight with saying thank you to each and every one for taking the time to come together in solidarity and in the form of a true beloved community. I am encouraged at how quickly this community stepped up and organized in so many ways. Carlisle and the surrounding area is filled with phenomenal local leaders in pursuit of social justice and equity. You will hear from a few tonight. The PHRC is your state's leading civil rights enforcement agency. We operate under the Pennsylvania Human Relations Act, which protects you from discrimination with respect to the protected classes. We have several information out in the hallway to save time for tonight's town hall. I encourage you to go out and check it out. Now, for the reason why we are here. White supremacy flyers and propaganda were spread throughout the community with the message of preserving the white race and the future of white children. This language is divisive and exclusive. It is designed to recruit the vulnerable and to instill fear in others. Tonight, the people in Carlisle have made it clear. Hate has no place here. While we are not looking to provide a platform for the group responsible for the flyers, we do offer an educational component tonight, as education is power. Education silences fear. It empowers us with the truth. I ask that we turn our attention over to the screen as I will be introducing to you Dr. Alon Bowicki, Senior Research Analyst from the Southern Poverty Law Center, who will provide us what we need to know about the group responsible. And then we will engage with this expert lineup on a deeper level on how to push back on hate and continue in building up the beloved community of Carlisle. So let us welcome Dr. Bowicki.
Thank you, Director Meck, and good evening, everyone. And thank you to the PHRC for convening this incredibly important town hall. I want to begin by honoring something very basic. If you saw one of the recent flyers in the driveway,
You're muted.
so you guys, can you guys hear me?
I don't think it's not muted on our end. I don't think it's our end.
We can hear you on the Teams call, but it sounds like they're having trouble hearing you in the room. So it's not your audio issue. We can hear you here.
Yeah, you'd think that after 7 years of this.
Wait, someone just
using Teams.
messaged and said folks can hear. Can you hear? Can he hear us?
I can hear you.
Yes.
Okay, all right, but that's at least half of it.
We good? All right. So again, I want to honor by begin by honoring by saying something very
Wait,
basic.
hold on,
If
he's
you are,
talking and we can't hear him. Listen, it was all going so well.
I
While we're working on it, by raising hand, how many people, let's take a guess. Pennsylvania, we are high
That's
when it
100%.
comes to the number of
You can hear us.
anti-government and hate groups assembling this. Can we take a guess at what number we rank at?
I don't do teams often.
Out of 50.
I don't do teams often.
3, other guess? 4? Oh, we have many. 900 groups. So the answer is that Pennsylvania is ranked top 10, and we have I don't have the exact number off the top of my head, but it's easily, between 1 and 2,000 alone in Pennsylvania. Every single time a flyers event occurs, it's for two purposes. And I mentioned it in my opening remarks. One is to instill fear. Two, to recruit, which again we'll speak to tonight, what that looks like and how people are targeted in that aspect. And then three, an opportunity for us to come together and push past.
Can you guys hear me in the room?
You still can hear
The Civil Rights Division at the Pennsylvania Human Relations Commission, we're in our third year. We are the third state in the nation to have a civil rights division at the state government level. California and New Jersey were first. States that are watching and observing the work that we do, we were modeled after DOJ CRS or what point it was. In that instead of nations peacemakers, we are Pennsylvania's peacemakers. We are a team of 5 that will travel the entire state. They are meant to meet with the people, to encourage, inspire, educate, and help. And so it is an honor to be a part of this group.
How many people are employed there?
With the Civil Rights Division, myself as the director, and we have 4 civil rights outreach coordinators. 2 in Harrisburg, 1 in Philadelphia, and 1 in
I'm
Pittsburgh.
gonna say something. Ask him to say something.
You guys good? Can you hear me?
Can you say something?
Can you guys hear me? No? Hello?
I can hear you. Salone?
Yeah, I'm here.
Okay, I can
Listen, I
hear
tried
you.
everything out this morning. I did not try out to use a microphone. I was really excited. I thought that everything worked today. I go back, that's what's going on. It did not happen at all. I think ours is, I don't know, if it's everybody, I don't know.
Ask him to speak again.
This is just the way it goes,
There
guys.
you go.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
Hold on.
Are we good?
Say it again.
Are we good?
Yeah.
You'd think by now, after, 4,500 years of COVID, we've been able to figure this out. Oh, good. That joke landed. I'm happy. All right, so let me start again. Good evening, everyone. Thank you for inviting me here. And what I wanted to start with was by honoring something very basic. As Director Mack sort of alluded to, is if you saw one of these recent flyers in your driveway or your car, or you heard about them from a neighbor and you felt angry or just unsettled, don't dismiss those feelings. They're real. When hate shows up where we live, even if it's in the form of some weird little plastic baggie, it does touch a deep nerve about safety, belonging, and also about history. So I want to do a couple things here in this first bit. First, to explain who the Aryan Freedom Network is, not in rumor or in headlines, but in clear terms. Second, to put this wave of flyering you guys have been in the midst of into context, what it tells us and what it does not tell us about our communities. And third, to stress that what you are doing tonight, choosing to log on, choosing to listen, and to learn, in and of itself is the strongest tool I think we have to push back against this kind of extremism. So to start, over the last couple of years, communities across Pennsylvania have encountered the name Aryan Freedom Network, or AFN. Residents in Franklin County, towns like Fayetteville and Shippensburg reported finding white supremacist pamphlets on their property in the past. And most recently in Carlisle, woke up to plastic bags containing a flyer, some small candies, and a message promoting this group. Reports have consistently said that these events are investigation, while also noting that they do not currently believe specific households were individually targeted. That combination, a real incident, but with limited information about who exactly is behind it, fuels both fear and uncertainty. The Aryan Freedom Network is a membership-based neo-Nazi organization headquartered in Texas, in DeKalb. They describe themselves as white racialist and national socialist, and they explicitly promote white unity and a whites-only state. The group's leaders, especially a guy named Dalton, who goes by the name of Brother Henry Stout, and Tanya Daisy Berry, come directly out of the Ku Klux Klan and other white supremacy networks. And they use those relationships to pull together Klansmen racist skinheads, Christian identity preachers, and other various neo-Nazi outfits under one umbrella. On their own website, at their own rallies, AFN leaders declare themselves to be unapologetically committed to the interests, ideas, securities, and cultural values of the white race, and are determined to protect our race from going into extinction. At a Dixie Unity rally in Alabama, Stout told followers, "We must show the world who we are, Aryan men and women coming together as one to fight for our freedom, to take our land back." And this group's propaganda and internal materials talk openly about an upcoming racial holy war and the need to be ready for it. They wrap that message in overt Nazi symbology. The AFN's flag features the Totenkopf, the skull and crossbones badge that was worn by SS units that helped run Nazi concentration and extermination camps, and it's usually ringed in oak leaves on a red and white shield using the same color scheme as the Nazi flag. The Our Online group praises a group from the 1980s, a neo-Nazi terror group called the Order, that was an offshoot of the Aryan Nations, that committed several acts of terrorism, including murder. At events like Aryan Fest or White Unity conferences, the AFN brings together figures from National Socialist movements and other extremist circles. So this is not just some random internet crank with a printer. It's a network that sees itself as a hub of white unity and wants to project an image of growth and momentum across as many states as possible. Now, the question we ask is, how much of a threat is this group in practical terms? On the one hand, and it's important to note that the AFN is small. Even sympathetic insiders admit that their numbers are not clearly as big as they claim to be, and at SPLC we have identified only a limited number of AFN chapters that show enough in-person activity to appear in our tracking. Just like many of their contemporaries, as I've discussed recently with you all regarding the Ku Klux Klan. The AFN hides behind pseudonyms, masks faces in photos, and prefers private lands for gatherings to minimize scrutiny. They lean heavily on social media and propaganda to seem larger, more disciplined, and more dangerous than they are on the ground. On the other hand, we can't afford to outrightly dismiss them. AFN events routinely feature firearms, tactical training, including multi-state meetups where members practice with rifles and conduct paramilitary exercises. The group valorizes past acts of racial terrorism and presents armed readiness as a core part of their identity. That is why we treat the AFN as more than just simply an online nuisance. We see it as one of the nodes helping knit together violent neo-Nazi subcultures, Klan remnants, newer active club formations that place a premium on physical confrontation and street presence. In that sense, the AFN is simply part of the broader white nationalist landscape. Even if the people leaving baggies of candy and propaganda in Carlisle were likely a handful of individuals, not a battalion. This is where the flyering we've seen in Pennsylvania fits in. Flyering is a tactic with a long history in the United States. The Klan has done it for decades, leaving leaflets on doorsteps, stuffing them under windshield wipers, using cheaply printed sheets to announce their presence and spread their message. And contemporary groups like the AFN have updated to using QR code, telegram handles, and slicker graphic design, but the logic is the same. It's inexpensive, it carries little immediate legal risk, and it allows very small numbers of people to create the impression of a much larger, much more organized force. These flyers serve three functions. As Director Meck pointed out, recruitment. Every piece of paper is an invitation to find them online. Normalization. If you keep seeing the same logo or same slogan on your street in your neighboring towns, it starts to feel like an accepted part of the local landscape, something that's out there and just a part of society now. And third is intimidation. When a racist or anti-Semitic message appears uninvited on your property, the question, who did this and why at my house, is hard to shake. That anxiety, in many ways, is the actual point. At the same time, however, it is crucial not to read more into these flyers than is actually there. In case after case around the country, systematic tracking of these campaigns have shown that a small cluster of individuals, sometimes literally the same 3 or 4 people, are responsible for dozens of incidents across multiple communities and even multiple states. The jump from flyering to organized violence is not automatic and in the majority of cases, severely unlikely. And most flyer drops are not accompanied by specific threats, detailed plans, or even evidence of significant local infrastructure. So we have to hold two truths together at once. These flyers are not proof that neo-Nazis are suddenly everywhere or that our neighbors are secretly being converted, but they are real expressions of extreme ideologies that is just as evident in 2026 America as it was in 1926. And it chips away at the sense that this kind of thing doesn't happen here. And this is where your presence matters so much here tonight. Extremist groups of all kinds depend on confusion, silence, and they rely on people encountering their materials without context, seeing edgy symbols and slogans, or picking up a flyer and thinking, well, maybe they're just defending free speech or heritage. They count on people being too embarrassed or frightened to talk about what they've seen, leaving targeted neighbors to feel alone and unsure whether anyone else cares. And education is one of the most powerful antidotes to this dynamic. When we learn the history behind these symbols and slogans, we strip away the mystique. When we talk openly about how a small number of extremists try to manipulate our perceptions and our fear, they lose their ability to shock and control the narrative. When we understand that the same names, the same networks, the same ideologies show up from Texas to Pennsylvania, we are better positioned to spot patterns early and respond effectively. Education is how we shift from a purely reactive to a proactive posture. It allows school leaders to build curricula and policies that equip students to recognize and reject hate propaganda. It allows faith communities and civic organizations to offer spaces where people can ask questions without shame and get reliable answers. It allows local officials to distinguish between real, imminent threats and attempts at cheap theater so they can allocate attention and resources where they are most needed. And critically, education is how we show respect for the people in this room and in the virtual space who are most directly affected because by saying, don't worry about it, to someone who sees a neo-Nazi flyer and feels a gut punch is not reassuring, it's dismissive. What is reassuring is being able to say, you're right to take this seriously, here is what we know, here is what this likely represents, and here is what it does not represent. Here is what we are doing together in response. That kind of informed reassurance treats people's fears as valid while grounding them in reality. So I want to close this little introduction by turning the spotlight back to you guys. If we are serious about eradicating hate, not just managing it, not just reacting to it, but shrinking the space it has to operate, then nights like this are not merely sideshows. They are part of the main strategy. By taking time out of your evening to be here, you're doing exactly what extremist groups hope you will not do. You are connecting with one another. You are seeking accurate information, and you are preparing yourselves to respond in ways that are thoughtful instead of panicked, firm instead of vengeful, united instead of fragmented. Extremist groups want to project strength, inevitability, and growth. What you are doing here together tonight is quietly undermining all three. You are showing that in Pennsylvania, the response to a baggie on a lawn is not a whispered fear and isolation, it's public conversation, shared learning, and a recommitment to the idea that there is, in fact, no place for hate in this state. Thank you.
Dr. Milwaukee, thank you so much for your inspiring and encouraging message full of education that speaks to the truth that we all need to feel empowered in this moment. The PHRC is forever grateful for our growing and working relationship with you. And we thank you again. So please feel free to hang tight on the call if you're able to, if we have questions for you at the end. But again, thank you so much.
My pleasure. And yeah, I'll be here.
At this time, I'd like to turn it over to our Civil Rights Outreach Coordinator, Montrell Smith. He serves out of the Harrisburg Regional Office. He will serve as your moderator tonight. We'll do a quick intro to the panelists over here, and then we'll get right into the questions.
Thank you, Director Mick. All right, so to my left, we have Dr. Jan Arminio, Chair of the Carlisle Community Responders Network. And beside you, we have Ann Van Dyke, retired former PHRC and member of the Greater Carlisle Community Responders Network. And we have Sonia Brown, co-founder of Moving Circles, and executive director of Domestic Violence Services of Carlisle and Perry County. And next to Sony, we have Maddie Young, president of the YWCA. And last but certainly not least, we have Corporal Bennett. My first question will be for Ms. Brown. Ms. Brown, you are a co-founder of Moving Circles, which is a group that does phenomenal community work. And can you share with us more about Moving Circles and how people get involved? Additionally, how did you personally react when you learned that white supremacy propaganda had been placed around our community?
I had to think very seriously about this question, that I want you to know how I really reacted. And how I should say what I reacted. Because I have to tell you this, I'm tired of going around the same mulberry bush again and again and again.
Amen.
It's frustrating, it's tiring, and you can get weary when you get tired. And I've gotten weary, but I have a good friend who encourages me, and I thank God for her. We belong here. This is not just your city, it's not just your town, we belong here together, we're brothers and we're sisters. That's who we are. We're a community. We're neighbors. We're people who are supposed to love each other in spite of. You question that about somebody who looks like me. Read that about me. I was delivered. I really, it hurts. I raised 4 daughters in this town. They won't come back. They won't come back. And they won't come back because of some of the experiences they had. And they were experiences around race. You don't have to believe me, I'm telling you. That's why they won't come back. We had an event and I brought my grandchildren to it here in Carlisle. And they couldn't believe the thinking of some of the people who were at the event. Because my daughter has speak them now in race and racism. You have to speak to my racism. It's just I don't know how to help you understand that my heart is broken, that I'm tired of going through this, that I don't think it's going to end. But this is the good news tonight. I just can't give up now. I've come too far from where he brought me from. Nobody told me, and I've known people all through this journey. This is hard, and Marsha and Ann Bennett. Nobody told me this journey was going to be easy. I can't believe God brought me this far. Now, he's on this journey with me. I wish it could be all about friendship dinners and fun times and all of that, but sometimes it's just got to be about the fight.
Yeah.
And that's what it is right now. It's about the fight. So I'm glad to see all of you here. I'm glad to feel supported in this fight. And I'm glad to know that there are people on the battlefield that I didn't know was on there. We can do this. We can do this. We can prove that love is greater than hate, because it is. It is. It's not that hard to prove it. Too bad it has to be done in groups. So as we meet together and as we come together, it encourages me, and I hope it encourages you. As you look around this room and see your brothers and sisters, I hope it encourages you. When I was at the YWCA, I was the Mission Impact Director, and so I was involved in a lot of issues around race. And one of the things that we started was a community potluck discussion. And so every quarter, we would call the community together, and we would have a potluck dinner, because I believe, maybe it's just me, that people get along better when there's food on the table. And we would have different things that we would discuss. And one of the discussions that we had was about the beloved community. We talked about the ideas of Martin Luther King, and had they ended or were they still continuing? And so I asked people, let's brainstorm ideas on how we can be a part of the solution and how we can do things to make our community better. And one of the solutions that was brought to me by Marshall and Ken Berry was Moving Circles. And Moving Circles is a grassroots conversational group. We come together once a month. We are coming up on 10 years that Moving Circle has met. We've been so they can see. That's a Marshall Berry. Sometimes we have discussions that are laid out ahead of time. Sometimes the conversation goes one way, but it's about us learning about each other. So that there's no fear, no misconceptions, no misinformation. It's just family. That's what it is. It's family. We meet at the YW. The very first time that we met, we said, well, we'll just move the circle from house to house. There were so many people there. I had to go back to the YW and say, can we stay here? We don't have room to move from house to house. So that's what Moving Circles is, just a conversational group that wants Carlisle and wants members of Carlisle to be part of the beloved communities. And I encourage each one of you to come out and to get involved. There are many other organizations, but I just happen to be biased to Moving Circles.
Thank you, Ms. Brown. Thank you very much. My next question is for Ms. Young, President of the YWCA. The YWCA brings together people from many different backgrounds. What role can institutions like the YWCA play in promoting inclusion and belonging when incidents like this occur?
Yeah, so I do believe that across the nonprofit community in our town, we have a strong support network of folks who are really committed to being inclusive and to serving the community. I think tonight is a wonderful example of how the town and PHRC organized to bring everybody together to have conversation very quickly, while people were still feeling the feelings and having thoughts or being nervous about what was happening outside their door. I think organizations in town have to be the safe space for people to come, whether you come to the YWCA or you go to domestic violence or you're at Safe Harbor or Carlisle Cares. Those are safe places for people to be in the community, but also to form relationships. And I think we have to find locations in the community where you can build neighbors. You can build friendships, everything that Sonia just talked about. It used to be that you could build friendship in your neighborhood and you could build friendship in your churches. And the community has kind of moved down the needle on that. I think we have to seek out ways and areas and organizations, because sometimes coming together over a shared purpose, a shared idea, builds the relationship. It builds trust. It builds the ability to see the other person's perspective. It builds empathy. All of those things are what lead to the ability to see the world from somebody else's viewpoint and creating a friend. But I think we have to seek those out very intentionally. You can't just say, well, I just, someday I'll know the people on my street. Or I'm going to keep my door closed because I hear commotion. Now, I live right downtown. And so I'm forever hearing commotion outside my door. And it's usually related to college kids walking back and forth. I could very well sit in my house with the door locked because I was afraid of what was happening outside. But I know my neighbors. I invite them to things that I'm doing. They invite me. So I think we have to be very intentional in our nonprofit network, our neighborhoods. The Carlisle Borough is very open to conversation. I also sit on the Carlisle Borough's Human Relations Commission, so I am here representing them also. Those are forums in our community where if you want to ask a question if you have a problem. If there's been something that has occurred that you need to discuss, you need to seek out those places in town, and we do have them. Mayor Schultz is here, I see him in the back. Mayor Schultz is always willing to talk and communicate and answer questions. So I know I kind of strayed away from the YWCA, but I think it's more than the YWCA. I think we have to find those places in our community where we can build relationship, we can build trust, we can build friendship, because that's our path forward. That is our path forward.
Thank you. Thank you. We provide those other resources as well. Corporal Bennett. An incident like the white supremacy propaganda is discovered here in Carlisle. When incidents like the white supremacy propaganda discovered here in Carlisle occur, how does the Pennsylvania State Police assess and respond to situations like this from a law enforcement perspective?
First, I want to say I'm sorry for the circumstances in which we're all here tonight. And I want to thank the PHRC for having the state police be on this panel. So from a law enforcement perspective on how we would respond to something like this, obviously the first thing, starting this investigative process, we want to gather information, right? We're going to be talking to obviously the people that were affected by this, establishing, getting that information first and foremost is essential to kind of figure out what's going on. So talking to the victim, talking to witnesses, getting the caller information, trying to narrow down what's going on, get some background information. Then we get into our investigative process, right? So our investigative process is always going to be thorough, all right? Analyzing the information. We always ask the public when you get something like this, the least amount of interaction with the evidence as possible, so we can gather as much information as we can, whether it be fingerprints, DNA, whatever the case is. Because obviously, these things can be hard to track. We have very limited information. We're always using our planners on the federal level, state level as well, as far as monitoring these types of incidents. We have intelligence analysts, intelligence partners who are constantly monitoring these types of incidents. They have some awareness of who is involved and what the status of individuals who they might be. So the process always, our perspective in going into something like this, we obviously want to find out who's causing this problem, who's committing these acts, who's committing these crimes, and essentially that's what we're working from there. And get as much information as possible. And ultimately letting the community know that we take this seriously. We take seriously, and we're doing that. Decent job, or a thorough job looking into it as well. So that's much as far as I can tell you, as far as our angles on how we approach something like this.
Can I actually ask you a follow-up question to that? And this came off of the Q&A when people registered, they had some questions. People wanted to know, what should they do when they come across a fire? Should they be picking it up right away? Should they be contacting the police department right away? What is the best case scenario on how the community can help preserve evidence?
Yeah, absolutely. So I actually was a victim of this myself 2 years ago. First time I seen it happen. My wife woke up one morning, she went outside and she saw this Ziploc baggie with this propaganda in it, rice or dirt seed inside. And the first inclination is to pick it up and see what it is. That's what we're going to do. But something like that, obviously you see it, it looks suspicious, it looks obviously alarming. And take a photo of it, put it somewhere safe, contact 911, they'll take appropriate action. But in most cases, most people are going to pick it up first, especially if it's on your property, on your lawn. It's somewhere that's you don't know what it is. So if someone's going to pick it up first, do as little touching it a bit as possible, is what I would say. Obviously, we can always eliminate their fingerprints from touching it, but with less interaction with that evidence, the more easier it is for us to put the file down, where it came from. Thank you.
Our next question is for Ann Van Dyke. What are some community triggering conditions that open the door for acts of hate?
There is a list of community characteristics, we call them triggering conditions, that open the door to hate in the form of recruitment by organized groups like what just happened here, or in the form of acts of intolerance of everyday people who live here. So these community characteristics, these triggering conditions are at the heart of this conversation. Civil rights workers have seen these triggering conditions over and over for decades all across the country. And during the 32 years I worked for the Human Relations Commission, various KKKs, Aryan Nation type groups, other various neo-Nazi groups were regularly holding public rallies like the one on the Cumberland Courthouse steps in September of 2000. How many of you remember that? Yeah, and how many of you went to the event? Yeah, it's worked out. It was my job back then to help communities prepare for that kind of mind-boggling experience. The rally that is held here was my 24th. And I knew that discussion of those triggering conditions was a key part of the overall conversation, as opposed to just discussing what to do the day of the rally. That's only a small part of the discussion, but understanding the real work begins the day after the rally. Now, those public rallies put communities on notice. And the notice was, we are trying to include here. Now that these flyers have been distributed, Carlisle is on notice again. And you're here to say, we will not be silent in the face of hate and good. And to be clear, whoever is distributing those flyers is watching to see how Carlisle responds. Do not be tempted to think, and don't let anybody say, if we ignore this, they will go away. So I gave the list of triggering conditions back in 2000 when I came here and when I first did the initial meetings with community leaders as we urged them to hold a unity event at the same time in an entirely different location as the KKK rally. And initially, there was substantial resistance to both holding the unity event, and there was a lot of resistance to the triggering condition list. There was a lot of resentment that I was naming that list here in Carlisle. And we didn't make the list up for Carlisle. The list made up itself and it's applied to so many communities across the state and across the country. And that's why we're in the trouble that we are. But regardless of that initial resistance, Carlisle held a powerfully positive unity rally with music and speeches and activities and the governor's presence and over 2,000 people, and proceeded to develop ways of addressing those triggering conditions, and I'm finally going to give you the list. So, number one, the fear of changing population that believes that some people belong, some people don't, and including people who have lived here for decades or generations and still get the message they don't belong here. And sir, did you want to say something?
Yes, I have a question. Yeah. As far as the KKK members, which one compared to Muslims would you disagree with? For us, the KK Klansmen members compared to the Islamic members, which one is the greatest, the threat?
That's not why we're here, sir, and I'm glad to talk to you individually about that after this presentation. That's not why we're here, and I'm not going there, sir.
No,
And
yes, ma'am. Yes, I am, please.
Say, as a retired civil rights investigator in the state, white supremacy is completely proud of. And sir, I need to go on with my list.
Right, Mr. Trace, it's supposed to be, ma'am. Can I say this? It's supposed to be because it's in your homeland. It's in your homeland. It's the greatest strength there is because it's been here all these years,
Yeah.
centuries.
Now, sir, I need to go on with this
I
presentation.
can,
We have a limited amount of time.
I can address that. You can talk to me after the, presentation. I can.
My name's Armin. Have a nice day.
Number one is the fear of changing population. Said that some people follow and some people don't. Number two is struggling economy. Pockets of struggling economy, particularly among people who have not historically been under or unemployed, but are now and are looking for someone like struggling economy. Number three is disconnection, different forms of disconnection within a town. And it doesn't have to be a hostile separation, just a lack of connection will do. Separation based on race, polite separation based on race and religion and national origin and LGBT status and economics and ancestry. Just that, that lack of connection means that when one group is harmed, everyone else gets to go, well, that's too bad, but I don't know those people. Therefore, I have the nickel in this time, I have no responsibility to. Other type of disconnection, which is particularly key to the conversation tonight, is disconnection of stable, caring adults with alienated youth. Alienated white youth who feel like they don't fit in or don't belong, they are particularly being targeted right now. Think about who your alienated white youth are. They are right for the picking. And what they're looking for is easy answers to complex problems. They're looking for charismatic leaders. They're looking for a sense of belonging. They're looking for excitement. They're looking for someone who will tell them they are valued. And in some cases, they're looking for reasons, excuses to deny it. So pay attention to your alienated youth of any color, but know that it's the white ones that are being targeted by those flyers. The fourth triggering condition is failure of community leaders, elected or not elected. Whoever's the community leader, failure to regularly talk about the positive that becoming increasingly diverse communities. It's happening. It's time to get our attitudes ready. And secondly, their failure to talk about the negatives of acts of bias. Because when we are silent in the face of bias, the message to the victims is, what happens to me doesn't matter. The message to the perpetrator is, I can do this here. And the last condition is the most negatively powerful, and that is the silence of good people. Because the silence of good people is the welcome mat for hate. It says you can do that here. So the group behind the flyers is seeking out those triggering conditions. That's how they hook in. And with tonight's events, you put that group behind those flyers on notice. Carlisle knows it has work to do and it's doing it.
Thank you. And the next question is for Dr. Jan Reno. Can you explain the role of the Greater Carlisle Community Responders Network and how it supports communities responding to incidents of hate and violence?
Sure. Am I on? So the Greater Carlisle Community Responders Network was established in 2020. We're, I would say, an offshoot of Moving Circles, which is what Ms. Sonia Brown talked about. So after the murder of George Floyd, it became apparent that, and I think also having experienced the KKK visit in 2000, it became apparent that there needed to be a response to it who could quickly pull together some events and have the community come together. Someone told me, oh, yes, after 2000, when things happen subsequently, it's like groups had their, we're unprepared. So it was, so forming an organization that would respond to acts of hate and bias. So, since June of 2020, when we launched, we've actually responded to over 35 incidents that have been reported to us. Okay, I'm sure a lot more goes on in the community that, is not reported to us. But through, social media networks, local newspapers, the Sentinel, churches, we've been able to create networks and meetings. We had a very large meeting of people back in January 2020. And we've kept the list of those interested people. And so when there's incidents, we let those folks know. We also keep a log of these 35 incidents. And what happens is I send out logs twice a year in April and October, and I explain what's happened in the past 6 months and how we've responded. So we typically respond in several ways, making sure that whoever the target is feels supported and gives us permission to respond in ways that they choose. We often write cards of support. We meet with people, we take them to lunch and have coffee. We connect persons who have been targeted with law enforcement, if appropriate. So, and then of course, we track these incidents and try and get a sense of patterns, like what's happening out there. So, yeah, when this was reported, we, got our heads together and, figured out what we wanted to do and how to proceed. So here we are, and I appreciate so much, you all being here. I will say that, we not only respond to incidents in Carlisle and the borough, but also some in the county and the area townships. And the Carlisle Police Department is very supportive for incidents that happen in the borough. It's a little more tricky with some of the outlying townships. And we have found also that some law enforcement in the townships aren't as supportive as the Carlisle Police Department. And so that's why we have to rely on the State Police Heritage Division. And Carlisle has an office, and the Carlisle representative is Corporal Ishmael Huerma. And he's terrific, by the way. And if you want some contact information, I can give it to you. We're always looking for people to help us, and I have some business cards out on one of the small tables out here with our email address. So I encourage you to report incidents to us. If you want to help us out, you want to get a copy of our log, that would be terrific. I also want to give a shout out to the mayor, because we had an ongoing incident with a woman who didn't live in the borough, and her neighbor was harassing her horribly. And unfortunately, the police in her township wouldn't believe her, and I didn't even know how he heard about this, but he communicated with her, and she was so appreciative, even though that he wasn't even, I mean, she's not even a borough resident, that he was willing to listen to her. So I think Carlisle, we do have supportive institution and leaders, and I appreciate that. So that's it.
Thank you, Dan. Ms. Brown, as you know, domestic violence and hate-based ideology often share common roots in power, control, and intimidation. Can you talk about how extremist ideologies and interpersonal violence sometimes interact?
Before you continue, I just got a question. Is these questions like from you directly, or is this from dialogue? Copy that, thank you.
As you said, it's rooted in power and control. It's an extreme ideology, all or nothing. And that's the same thing that you find in that bond, very black and white. I have to be in control and you have to be my subordinate. And it works very well the same way. And we find that a lot of people who have joined these groups are all, they're either victims of domestic violence, childhood domestic violence, or they're also perpetrators of domestic violence. And so it runs very closely together. And they also are the type of people that if they're not in the status that they think they should be in, then they justify violence as a way to get there. It's the same way with domestic violence. If I'm not in control, then I have the right to put you in your place, to do whatever it takes to have you fear me, and I can intimidate you. So that's how that intersectionality happens between domestic violence and ideology.
Ms. Young, what have you seen that works when it comes to building genuine relationships across racial, religious, and cultural differences?
So I would say some of it's already been touched on, finding a common purpose, creating relationship, understanding the perspective of the other person. I think that Sonia shared a lot of information about moving circles. Moving Circles is a group that is building a beloved community through education and learning, but also through relationship building. There are other places through church groups or other organizations that you can build that network of people. None of this is new. Racism isn't new. Hate crimes are not new. Domestic violence is not new. The YWCA provides the sexual assault and human trafficking services. Sexual assault is not new. All of that through time has maybe changed, taken a little different face. But the bottom line is, if we build relationships and we know who our neighbors are and we approach a situation with empathy and understanding, if we listen to the person that's talking to us, that goes a long way to that list that Ann just gave you. That goes a long way in combating that list. Because then we're not the place hate groups want to live. Because there will be a response, because we know each other, we support each other. And we can call out Mayor Schultz just because he's sitting in the room. We would call out Chief Landis if he was in the room. We have supportive people in this community and we just have to keep building on that. We have to draw people in to be in our positive circles. Because as you heard Ann say, the biggest risk for people becoming radicalized is isolation. When folks are isolated and they don't feel part of the community, they don't feel like they're part of the solution, they don't feel like they're part of their network, then they find another network to belong to. So we as a community have to keep identifying and creating opportunities for people to engage. And people do have to make a commitment to step up and get to know your neighbor, to join a group, to sit on a board, to talk to the mayor if you have questions, to come to a HRC meeting, a human relations meeting, to reach out to the PHRC. There are ways to get involved. We have to keep building opportunities to include people so they do not become radicalized and continue to propagate hate crimes.
And before you close, Ms. Young, I just had a question. How many people since your committee has been created has actually came to your press?
For the HRC, for the borough?
Yes, ma'am.
I don't know that. I'll give you my card afterwards and I can follow up.
Copy that, because as far as I understood, the last meeting I attended was last February of 2025. It was currently at that time, it was about one. as far as who that was, I understood that they didn't follow up with their incident, so it didn't conclude anywhere. But as far as from that year to date, I'm not sure exactly how further that went. The committee, I'm sure, has been created since what, 2020?
I don't know when the committee was created. I've been on it for a year. Miss Wanda sits on the committee with me. Since I've been there a year, nobody has lodged a complaint.
Yes.
And nobody has come forth to the committee with any incident that we need to follow up with.
Understood, thank you.
Corporal Bennett. The Office of Community Engagement and Heritage Affairs focuses on building relationships in diverse communities. How does that work prevent incidents like this from strengthening trust between communities and law enforcement?
So the Pennsylvania State Police is working with an Office of Community Engagement, and our main task is to go out into communities outside of a emergency response and having these interactions and engagements that are, positive, that are long lasting and very effective in establishing a good conversation with the community members about obviously policing, establishing trust with the community members. When we do that through our Office of Community Engagement, we have two sections in our office. We have our community affairs officers. We have our section IMN, which are heads of the various sections. Essentially, we're replacing the department, and we go out and strive to develop public trust by engaging with the public, going to events, being involved in community discussions, whether it's a panel, whatever the case is, just being very active in the community to show, obviously, policing has come a long way. It's very different now as we're in the 21st century. And we know what our role used to be in these communities and having these interactions. And a lot of that we do is educate the public. We go into the diverse communities, communities anyway, there we see a change in demographics. And we educate the community members, whether it's a local police department or a school. And our Office of our Heritage Affairs section does provide free training to the community on topics centered on cultural competency. We talk about cultural diversity awareness. We talk about inclusive bias awareness, and in hopes. And when we do these presentations, we have these interactions that maybe it can prevent, or at least get across to someone who may be vulnerable to some of these incidents, these acts that may happen. So we're just talking to a teacher, talking to the local police department, educating them on what's going on. Just goes a long way in just tapping up the issues that are going on in the community. And essentially, our mission is just keep having these interactions. And but obviously our diverse, even our immigrant communities are really, they're very afraid right now. We even say, call 911, take any type of action. There's, the time that we're in. So our mission is focused on, obviously, being centered on promoting trust within community members. So there's no issue at all when something happens in the community that they can come to us without fear or any type of concern, knowing that we have their best interests in mind.
Thank you.
And before you close, sir, is Corporal Bennett correct?
Yes, sir.
I just wanted to ask one thing, sir, maybe two, but the first thing was, what type of incidents are you referring to in this community that happened that, I don't know, that you're projecting? Yes, that is.
I'm not, you mean did I refer to anything that happened here?
Well, your statement just said that you were referring to like incidents that happened in the community that, I mean, obviously.
I would just speak general as far as,
I was just,
with the Office of Community Engagement, obviously, our mission is to engage with the public. When I talk about incidents, I'm just being general of community members not being afraid to report incidents. Maybe you may have someone that's, could be from a different country. They've had an experience with the police department where they think if I report something like this, they might not be taken seriously. So we're just trying to change that narrative, change that perspective that may come from different parts of the community with these diverse communities that we cover throughout the state. Not just here in Carlisle, but, everywhere across the state, essentially.
So, I understand that there's foreigners from like out of the country. They come here legally on visas, whether it's work, school, marriage, etc. So like whenever you become American, right? When we're talking about Americans here, Cumberland County is a big county. We're talking about Carlisle. All right, so everybody's here in this meeting today for Carlisle, Pennsylvania. Am I correct? I mean, obviously, we're here for everybody, right? But at the end of the day, like the incidents occurred in Carlisle, Pennsylvania, as far as I understand. And I mean, it happened back in September as well. So, I mean, I'll be honest with you, like, all I asked for was for you to refer to an incident. I didn't ask for a prolonged statement. I just wanted an incident that you're referring to, the type of incidents that happened in this community, to the type of people that are Americans that also live, have families like this, this woman just said. I'm sorry, I forgot your name, but he did just mention about our family's been here for decades. We have last names that have been in this hometown, right? They call it hometown. Like you can drive them down the same streets, and see the same people for years. So, I mean, we can continue to talk about the whole Cumberland County because we're all here, but we're really referring to the community that we're in right now. Like we're having this meeting in Carlisle. Now, there's another meeting that happens for the state, right? And that's at the Capitol. We're not at the Capitol. You understand that? We're in Carlisle, Pennsylvania. So, referring to the question again, one more time. I just wanted to know what kind of incidents you're referring to as far as the things that you've seen in your office, that you're a corporal supervisor, and you've had complaint things come across your desk. I just want to know and what your standpoint is on that.
Well, in our Heritage Affairs section, one of our primary functions is to monitor and respond to hate crimes and vice-versa incidents. So it could be something like flooding, like we see here in Carlisle. It could be, something that happened in the school that's racially motivated or whatever the case is. But again, it doesn't matter if you're American, if you're a citizen, we don't care about that. But if you're a person, if you're a victim of a crime, we're going to be treating you the same way as anyone else. So as far as that part goes, we don't care about someone, their legal status here.
Excuse me?
We don't care about the person's legal status.
Excuse me?
Can you let the presenter present?
Yeah.
I'm sorry, you don't care about the legal status.
Reference if the person was American.
Yeah.
We don't have to.
Well, again, we talk about the history of this town. We're in a historical location.
We're not talking about immigration rights.
We're sitting here in a historical building, an historical location that refers to the town of Carlisle. You're not going to sit here and tell me to disregard the history of this town.
If you have more, I think address you after this.
Yeah,
You more direct questions, we can talk about it after this.
Yes, and we're gonna say don't work Q&A is supposed to be set at the end. I mentioned that at the beginning of the town hall. Let's just get through these questions first. We'd like to finish out and then we'll honor it with space here. And for the sake of the PHRC, we will say whether you are documented or not, you are protected under the Pennsylvania Human Relations Act. Out here in the hallway. So we'll just push that topic, while important, to the side so that we can finish our panel.
Yeah, I have a question I think
So we're
everybody
gonna
would like
say-
to know the answer to.
We're going to save it for the
The
end.
no solicitation ordinance in Carlisle. What am I allowed to do as a resident here to enforce that ordinance? If I see them putting flyers in my neighbor's door, or putting flyers on
We will allow her to answer your questions.
I'd like to know how far the law allows me to go.
Thank you.
Find out.
All right, so the next
Do that.
question is.
I'll then find out.
Next person is- What is the difference in the distribution of white supremacist flyers and hate crimes?
All right,
The speech begins with, acknowledging that we have the strongest freedom of speech rights in the galaxy. The courts have made it clear that speech, whether written or oral, that incites, I'm doing the words here, incites.
Can you speak into the microphone?
Okay, thank you. The courts have made it clear that speech, whether written or oral, that incites eminent lawless action is illegal. It's not protected speech. Speech that tends to be protected is in the form of opinion. And yes, sometimes that opinion is extremely offensive, racist, homophobic, anti-Semitic, Islamophobic, you name it. But if it's in the form of opinion, often it is protected speech. That is why the KKK could stand on your county courthouse steps and say all their opinion, things like in our day. They often begin with those words, in our day, America will be a homeland for white people only. So that's an opinion, and it's not a naming an exact time. So were those flyers that were handed out have said something like, meet us tonight at 6 o'clock on March 10th or whatever it was, and we'll go burn down something. That's inciting eminent lawless action. That is not protected speech. That's not what the flyers say. These groups know a lot about protected and unprotected speech. Now, in many situations when there's flyers like what happened here, the only law that is broken is a local ordinance, which, loitering ordinance, which may be the case here. But even, flyers promoting goodness, that would be littering as well. So there's a littering ordinance. That's the issue. Now, one of the things you just let me give you that the very flat-footed version of Pennsylvania hate crimes law. There is a provision in the crime code that's called, generically called the hate crimes law. It's called the ethnic intimidation statutes. And that applies when certain crimes like harassment or assault or arson are committed, and there is evidence that the crime was motivated by hatred toward the victim's race, color, religion, or national origin. Those are unfortunately the only 4 protected classes in that hate crimes law. It needs to be more, tell the legislature. So if, for example, there had been, let's say, graffiti, spray painted on the side of this building, any building, that said, you know,
Save our white children.
well, said something that was very racially motivated, like, KKK, and put swastikas, that kind of stuff. Then it would be clear, it would be criminal mischief and ethnic intimidation. So flyers tend to only violate littering, but still get the message across. And that's another reason why you always need to inform your municipal police department of, and don't make a determination yourself, just let them know. Okay.
Thank you, Dan.
How does a group like yours coordinate with local government, nonprofits, and civil rights agents like the Pennsylvania Human Relations? Jan.
Would you repeat that so
Sure,
we can hear?
sure. Jan, how do groups like yours coordinate with local government, nonprofit, and civil rights agencies like the Pennsylvania Human Relations Commission?
Well, for people involved in this work, in Carlisle and I think in Cumberland County, there's a cross pollination. So that some of the same people who are involved in moving circles, the responders network, are also on the advisory committee. There's a Cumberland County advisory committee to the PHRC. Okay, and they're a voluntary group, and they're the eyes and ears, the local eyes and ears for the PHRC. And so in Cumberland County, we included Montreal Smith, and we talk about the eyes and ears. Okay, so I think we're lucky here in Carlisle and Cumberland County that there's some cross pollination of people involved in moving circles, not in our town. Other organizations, you know, I'm seeing Cheryl Hale and her Believers in Action at her Methodist Church, for example. So, so there is a cross pollination now. And, you know, people are pretty connected, you know, through these organizations, through relationships, but also social media. So that once an incident occurs and somebody in some of these groups finds out about it, you know, we meet and discuss how do we want to respond? And is it appropriate for the PHRC, right, the Pennsylvania Human Relations Committee, the commission? And we do talk a bit about is this a crime, a possible crime, or is it an incident of bias or hate? And I'll give you an example of that. In the fall, there was a vehicle rolling around town yelling epithets and like "fatso" out the window. Okay, now, not a crime, but ridiculous, okay? So we, the Responders Network, tried to, you know, what can we do about it with something that's unpleasant, despicable, but legal. Legal. Awful. Yes, thank you.
So, thank you. At this time, I'd like to add just a couple more thoughts here. So Dr. Arminio talked about our advisory councils. The PHRC has 20 advisory councils across the state.
Excuse me, if you have a microphone, it
Yeah.
would be wonderful if you could use it.
I do. Is this not loud? How's this? Much better? Yeah. We have 20 advisory councils across the state. As Jan mentioned, this is individuals like this room, volunteers that meet with us once a month or once every other month, that give us the data and the information that we need in order to help respond. The second thing I want to say is that in preparation for tonight, I saw on social media, I've heard in conversations that there was divisiveness beyond the flyers itself. There were comments that said, perhaps those who are holding tonight's town hall are the same individuals that put out the flyers. Make no mistake, that is 100% incorrect. That is everything that the PHRC stands against. That is not who we are and what we do. And again, it continues to further divide us and is exclusive in nature. We cannot waste any more time fighting each other. When we have executive orders that say English is the only language, when we have orders being passed that says you can pull somebody over based off of them looking like an immigrant, I ask you then to define what does an immigrant look like? Because unless you are 100% unless you are 100% Native American, we are all descendants of immigrants. The psychological safety that has been decreased for people of color in today's climate is not fair. It's not right. And not only does it take our voices, your voices, all of ours. Yes. So for anybody that wants to joke about this, comment about it, continue the divide, I give you this: educate yourself. Not at my job, our job, people of color, so on and so forth. You have the ownership of what you read, what you learn, who you talk to, and what you do about it. That's right. While I am encouraged by the group that is here tonight, the conversations that we've had behind closed doors, you are talking to a team that will travel the state and have heard horrific stories that affect young and old, Black and white, Christian, Jewish person, and non-faith. Hate is a sickness. It is not something that we cannot continue to put a Band-Aid on. It takes surgery, and it starts within yourself.
Yes.
In order for me to do this role as Director of the Civil Rights Division, I have to continuously, every day, renew my mind and my spirit and pray for protection of my peace. Because when things like this happen, I get angry too.
Yes.
And as Sonia mentioned in the beginning, it is exhausting.
Yes.
So
Yes.
whatever agendas are in this room or out, if your goal is beyond anything other than building a beloved community, please excuse yourself. So with that, we're not going to do any more Q&A. I am going to just again remind you that our pamphlets are outside in the hallway. If you feel, believe, or think that you have been discriminated against, you have 100% every right to file a complaint with us. We will help you figure that out, and we will take a look at it.
Yes.
No, you won't.
All right? If it's a good one, we'll take it.
Wow.
I just want to say that I did not know about you. I did not know about you. I have heard of Blue Purple. I want to tell you from the bottom of my heart, I appreciate everything I have learned tonight. I'm so grateful to you.
Thank you. And while I no means want to cut tonight short, because it is 8:20. And therefore, we do have 10 minutes. Respectfully, the
That's it.
Civil Rights Division will stay behind.
That's it.
Respectfully, the panelists that have mentioned that they will stay behind. We will speak with you further if you'd like. But let us leave tonight with this. Hope for a better tomorrow. Hope that our children will live in a better place that we have than what we have today.
Yes.
And if you don't make any, do not diminish how small or big your ripple effects are. Whether it's only in your own home, your neighborhood, your school, your work, whatever it is. If you are not looking to uplift others or understand things or educate yourself, you're missing the point. And we have one shot at this. One shot. All right? So everything